The Nashville Predators go 1-1 this weekend. Saturday, the Preds hosted the Florida Panthers, winning 7-3. And yesterday, went to Minnesota to face the Wild. They beat the Preds 4-3 with a late comeback. The Preds still fell short. Here was John Hynes after the game.
We split the weekend. We got to have a day off tomorrow, and then we got another big week. So we didn't have a great game against Boston. Didn't get too low on that. Came back and played two pretty good games. So we got to make sure we're in that same mindset and not sit in this game. And whatever emotions you feel after this game, you got to bring that into Tuesday's game.
The Tennessee Volunteers fell to the Kentucky Wildcats this weekend, 66-54. Next up for the Vols, they'll head to Texas to face Texas A&M on Super Tuesday. And the Vanderbilt Commodores are on a 5-game win streak in the SEC. The Commodores defeated the Auburn Tigers 67-65 Saturday. Next up for them, they'll face the LSU Tigers. This report is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. I'm Michelle Knezovic for 102.5-106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 102.5 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 102.5 and 106.3.
1, 2, 3. I think it was a good game. Had a couple of big plays.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
All the big topics.
That's what people want to know about.
Mixed with some entertainment.
So funny.
It's not funny.
Give it a minute.
This is Chase and Michelle with Chase McCabe and Michelle Knezovic.
We got a great show for you. Even if we don't, who cares?
Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club, love your hair, live your life. On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome in Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chase McCabe, Michelle Knezovic, reporter Nick Keyser here with you. Hope you had a great weekend. Fantastic start to your day. A lot to get into this morning as Robbie Stanley is actually going to join us in about 30 minutes to talk more about the Predators, get his thoughts on that. Jonathan Hutton at 10:30. Michelle, how are you?
Doing good this morning. Got to see some friends this weekend, watch some college basketball. It was a good weekend all around. See my brother. Feeling good this morning.
That's good. This weekend for me was, is a very important weekend because the Daytona 500 was yesterday.
Can't say I watched.
That's okay. I am one of those people that when it comes to NASCAR, if you don't like it, that's fine. Don't diss it. Don't diss something that you don't like because you don't understand it or don't like it, and I like it. But if you don't watch it, that's fine. I'm not gonna force you. But I love it. I watched every lap. I might have had my mid-stage 2 nap, which is like a tradition for me. So middle point of the race, take a little snooze. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. gets the win, the longest Daytona 500 in history. It was actually like the Daytona 530. Because of overtime, but he's from just outside of Memphis, so congrats to him on getting that win. But let's talk Preds. That's where we start today because I told you, we talked about this last week, even though I wasn't even including a 5-1 loss to Vegas, which was ugly after the All-Star break, a 2-1 barely win overtime win in Philly, a 4-2 very bad loss to Arizona. I was basically saying, Boston, Florida, Minnesota, we're going to kind of tell you a story. Well, they went 1-2, or I'm sorry, 2-1. Yeah, 1-2. If I could speak. 1-2 in that. Math is very hard. They get blown out by Boston. They win 7-3 against Florida, and then lose yesterday. Which I know we've said it's a heartbreaker because they tied it up with 47 seconds left, but they were down the whole game. In that one, and so I think there was a little bit of false hope that might have been created, and then they end up losing with 20 seconds left in regulation, and so things not looking good for this team right now. And I am in the crowd of I think it's time, if I'm David Poile, to start picking up the phone and listening.
Yeah, I was in that category. I'd say after the Bruins loss, after the 5-0 loss, and it's not so much just losing to the Bruins because they are probably going to win the President's Trophy. They're the best team in the NHL right now. It was more so the way you lost, a shutout at home, right? Coming off that loss to Arizona, which you knew you couldn't have if you're still hoping to get into the playoffs. And then I was very much to the, okay, you're selling at the deadline, but I was giving a slim opening in the door for this weekend to see what they'd be able to do. The Florida Panthers game, I mean, talk about an offensive performance from the team. I think the fan base was feeling excited. I think I tweeted something like this team confuses me when the final score was 7-3. And last night, although Minnesota was up, I thought, oh, okay, well, here you go. They're showing us. Then the Preds respond. They're able to tie the game.
Yep.
You get kind of excited of, okay, now they can only be 3 points back if they get the win in regulation. Then you lose, and now you're 7 points back.
So I will say I will never, ever, 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 ever root for this team to lose by any means. I don't want anybody to take that I would ever root for them to lose. But being a realist, I sat there and I thought, okay, if they – and I thought this before the game. If they win this game, like you said, they are in a much better spot than they were going into it. But – because of how the season has gone, where it's been very up and down, and they've pretty much been in this purgatory of they're just outside of a playoff spot, and they can't seem to make any traction. I looked at it as this is gonna create the roller coaster ride for the fans and for David Poile of like, I'm right there. What the heck do I do? Do I sell? And just say, hey, we're probably not going to, I know we're not going to make it, even though I see the door. Like I see, like the door is open and I see it. I just can't walk through it. That's kind of where they're at. And so if you win that game, it creates some of that even more. Now I feel like the picture is getting clearer for him. And I think he knows that. I don't think he's going to come on tomorrow with Robbie and Rexroad and admit that necessarily, but it just it's feeling that way. I mean, you've played since the All-Star break 7 games, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games.
6.
You've won 6 games, or you've played 6 games and you've won 2 of them. That's where you're at.
And before the break, showing some promising hockey, 3-game win streak, you break, and now David Poile, I mean, when he puts together a team, he believes that they can if they were able to beat Minnesota and only be 3 games back now from making the 3 points back from making the playoffs rather than 7 now, it puts them in a harder situation of, okay, well, maybe not yet. Let me hold on. Let's play maybe another game or 2. Let me see what they can do and kind of hold on to that hope of, okay, well, maybe they're starting to put some things together. They had a nice gritty win, a comeback win after being down. But after this loss, it's a little bit clearer to him. Okay, now the likelihood, I think it's at an 8-9% chance right now to make the playoffs. You start really calling around and seeing what offers people are able to make for a Matthias Ekholm who's been thrown out there, Tanner Jeannot has been thrown out there, and you really start thinking, okay, what can we get for these players?
So, and I want to address that too. And so you have to decide if you're David Poile, are we going full-on rebuild, which I don't believe they're going to do. I think it's going to be more of a retool. A full-on rebuild would be Saros is on the trade block, which I don't believe that for 1 second. So, I read these, fans and hear other media members saying like, okay, we'll trade this person and this person, see what you can get for this. You do have to have players. Like, you do have to field a team. Mm-hmm. And Milwaukee needs to field a team. So, I mean, you do have to factor that in. I think this is an opportunity where you have some guys that you kind of feel like you know what you might be able to get for them. You see what you can do. Like, I think Tanner Jeannot is somebody that could fetch you maybe a second-round pick because he's the type of player a team going into the playoffs would want because he's a physical type guy.
But on the flip side, he's also a young guy that if you're building around this young core,
Sure.
you want to keep. So
Sure.
you have to weigh that.
I look see Ekholm is one that you're probably going to get some calls on him, but he's got term, and if you're just retooling, is that somebody you want to lose? McDonough's another one. You're not asking Yossi to waive his no trade, I believe. I don't think you're at that point. You just re-signed Forsberg, and I don't think you're doing that. You're not going to get – you could listen to offers for Duchesne. Don't think you're going to get much for him. Johansson, same thing. Johansson might be a little easier to move because there's only 2 years left, but you're probably going to have to retain some salary if you were to do that. So it's not as easy as you might think it might be to go ahead and move some of these players. But I do think that things are about to pick up with 5 games left before the trade deadline. That David's going to work the phones. I just feel personally that we're past the point of, let's see what happens in the next couple games. I kind of think
So do you think right now, if you had to take a guess, these next couple games as feel as on ice play, they don't matter? You think David Poile has made up his decision?
I think I don't think he's made his decision. I'm saying I've made my decision. I don't think he's made his decision. I feel like there's just this roller coaster game we're going to keep playing. They should win the next 3. I can't sit here and tell you that they're going to. They've already lost to Arizona. They lost to Arizona, a few games ago. So they play them again. Vancouver sucks.
Yeah, they're not playing good teams.
San Jose sucks. Arizona sucks. They should win those games. But my guess is they're probably not going to win all 3, just the way that they have played. So if you can sit here and you can say that that, which we don't know definitively, but that you have a good idea of that, then what are we doing? That's my – and look, this is coming from the guy that is always glass half full. So if I'm saying that now and I'm looking at, hey, let's start working the phone, see what can happen, then that's honestly where it should be.
I agree with you. More of my mindset is, okay, trying to where's David Poile's head right now? And say they do win these next 3 games.
And
he decides, we're not going to sell at the deadline. How would that make you feel?
I think it would be a mistake. I think it would be a mistake, and it would be one of those things that if I'm wrong, I will happily admit that I'm wrong. But I think if you did that and you basically stood pat, which is what he would do, I don't think he would acquire anything, then you're going to be in the same position that you have been. You might get in, and if you do get in, you'll probably get beat the first round. And it'll be just what it's been. And then, now you don't have – the good thing is – a lot of the assets we're talking about selling, you could wait till the summer because you don't have, UFAs. You have some RFAs, but you would still own their rights, and so you could move it. You could do it this summer. But I know that the fans would go up in arms about that.
I would be interested, and text us on our text line or call in. Would you rather see them make no moves at the trade deadline and just squeak into the playoffs, or would you rather them, spearhead this and make some trades at the deadline and knock into the playoffs?
I think I can answer that question
Listen,
for the people, but I want to hear from the people.
We think we can, but I have seen some interesting different takes on that.
615-737-1025. We will take your calls and texts on that coming up next. Plus, what type of change outside of the players do we believe could happen at some point? Robbie Stanley at the bottom of the hour. It's Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
We are your home for every big pass.
Kevin Harvick takes over the race lead.
Big wreck.
Trouble turn 2. One car is around and hard into the outside wall.
And big win.
Austin Dillon wins at Daytona.
Catch every lap of NASCAR on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
All right, let's talk about Hair Club. They are the proud presenting sponsor of Chase and Michelle, and I've been talking about them for a while because I wanted to do something about my thinning hair and my look, so I gave them a call. Hair Club, no matter what your issue may be, whether it's restoration, regrowth, small problems, big problems, whatever, they have the answers, and they're tailor-made for you because everyone is different. All you need to do is go in for a free consultation, and they will help you out with whatever direction you need to go for your hair situation. They have that solution. Fill out the form at hairclub.com/Chase. That's my name, CHASE, to schedule your free consultation, and they'll give you 10% off if you happen to purchase anything just because I sent you. You can also text my name, Chase, CHASE, to 694-247. That's 694-247. It's Hair Club. Love your hair. Live your life.
Preds fans, Superbook wants to send one lucky fan a pair of tickets on the ice. Text the keyword Superbook, all one word, to 615-737-1025 for entry to win.
Hey, it's Mike from Newton Nissan. It's February, and I know most people immediately think of the groundhog. But I don't want to focus on how Phil became the most well-known weatherman in history and how his accuracy rivals most human weathermen. I prefer to focus on love. We all know the songs Love Hurts and Love Stinks. Those songs are not welcome here. At Newton, we love what we do. The heart of what we do is found in helping people. And what better way to do that than by listening to your needs and helping you find exactly what you're looking for? We love helping you find the car you love. We love keeping the car you love running at its best. We have tons of new cars on ground looking to be loved and a huge selection of pre-loved cars waiting for you to give them a new home. You can shop for your next love on our website with Newton FastPass. Your new love can be delivered to your home. Find your love at Newton or visit us online at newtonnissan.com.
Did you know women only make up 14% of all engineers in the U.S.? Play Like a Girl is creating a more equal playing field by ensuring that every girl reaches her full potential. Help introduce a girl to engineering by becoming a mentor, donor, or volunteer. Learn more at iplaylikeagirl.org/mentor.
For the love of the climb, for the love of the fall, for the love of knowing your kids' laughter is the sweetest music there is, for the love of Tennessee. Travel safe. Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
TSU basketball lives on 102.1 The Ville. Join Coach Brian Penny Collins and the Tigers for every great moment in the OVC. On your home for TSU basketball, 102.1 The Ville and the Ville app. Taking you through your mid-morning.
Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This is Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club. Love your hair. Live your life.
Where'd you find those crazy characters?
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's always the same thing, isn't it? When everybody gets frustrated, you can't trade 20 players. You can make a change in management, or you can make a change in coaching, and oftentimes teams do that. I for sure think that's always the easiest road, and I'm not prepared to take an easy road. This is a team responsibility. I mean, you cannot, for me, separate the coaches and the players for where we are right now, and everybody has to do a better job. I mean, as you're talking in this interview, I guarantee you that John Hines and his coaching staff are as frustrated as anybody. But I just don't think that is the problem with our hockey club. I think our players have played better, and again, we have nobody that is having a career year with our team. And again, that's the responsibility. The guys got to step up and play better. I fully believe that we have a team that is capable of making playoffs. I fully believe that we have individual players that have not played their best this year. So, again, I'm a team guy, and it starts with me, and we all have to be better.
That was David Poyle, Preds GM, last week on Robbie and Rex Road. Good song choice, Nick. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And whether you put it on the coach, make a coaching change, what have you. And I have said this, and I stand by this. This is not all on John Hines. It is a collective, and I in some ways, I feel for John. because I do think he's thrown everything but the kitchen sink, and maybe he has thrown the kitchen sink at this point at this team. It's just been inconsistent and a roller coaster ride. And unfortunately, the way this works, and David Poile said it there, he doesn't like taking the easy way out. And if you look at his history, this organization has had 3 head coaches in its history. Peter Laviolette was the only one that he fired mid-season. Barry Trotz was a mutual parting of the ways, if you want to call it that. But that was at the end of the season. And then, I think he maybe had the same amount when he was the GM of the Washington Capitals. So he doesn't like making coaching moves. He's very, very loyal. But I think at some point, if the message is getting lost, whether it's the right message or not, the right system, if they're not listening, then unfortunately there's a change you're going to have to make. I don't think it's going to be now. I don't think it really matters now if they were to do it. And, people that are asking the question, is David the right one, to sell at the trade deadline, or should you make a GM change now? No, you should not make a GM change right now. What is that going to do?
We all saw what an in-season GM change looks like, or
right,
firing.
Right. And here's the thing that I think people aren't necessarily putting together. If ownership all of a sudden did something that they have shown no sign of doing at all, and they go, hey, David, thanks for 25 years, you're out. Well, who do you think takes over? I don't know if it would be Brian Poile, but it might be Scott Nickel, or it'd be one of his lieutenants. Mm-hmm. So it would be somebody cut from that cloth. You're not going to go out on the street right now and go, hey, guy that has no familiarity with this roster whatsoever, can you come here and work the trade deadline and the draft for us?
Yeah, you listen, people can say,
doesn't work that way.
They don't like some of the moves that David Poile has made either, but you don't want that to happen, Chase, what you just laid out right there. Having somebody making moves for your organization who hasn't had at least just the experience in the NHL that David Poile has. And I think something also important to mention too is for everybody, calling for John Hines' firing, who's going to hire your next head coach? It's going to be David Poile. So, when you look at this situation, I think it's really, really hard to pinpoint one issue because they're all just playing a role, whether it's the player's execution on the ice, whether it's, Hines having trouble getting his message across to the players, whether it's the moves that David Poile has made. But I think something important to mention, which sometimes people don't seem to realize, is, okay, well, you don't like David Poile's moves, and you know that the ownership probably won't fire him, but you want John Hines to get fired, which then would equal David Poile hiring a new coach.
Bingo. Now, I think there is one person in particular, if David were to bring in as the head coach, that fans would probably be okay with. That would be the guy that I
Bear Trotz.
Yeah, just mentioned in the mutually parting ways. And look, I mean, I say this. I like John a lot. John and I have really hit it off. I think he's a very good man. I think he's sometimes judged unfairly.
I agree.
As a coach, I think you can't. Okay, he's never won a Stanley Cup. He's never, like the playoff success maybe hasn't been there. He was in a rebuild with New Jersey, and he took over this team mid-COVID, and there's a lot of factors there.
Mid-COVID showed that he was able to get the most out of these players last year, or at least your top stars, right, that we've talked on a bunch of times. But people are like, we want a young head coach to develop players. Okay, I mean, we've seen some good things from some of the young players, right? But then on the flip side, you knock him for not having a Stanley Cup or not making a run in the playoffs. Okay, but you want a young head coach to develop your young players, but if you go try to get a veteran head coach who's won a Stanley Cup, do you think he's going to want to come to this roster, Chase?
Yeah,
now?
Not right now. No, and the other thing too is what I've seen is the same thing that I felt and was a part of and saw in the early 2000s. The Titans become the Titans, and what do? The first year that they're in that stadium and they're called the Titans, they go to the Super Bowl, and they lose on 1 yard short with Kevin Dyson. And so our thought was, man, this is a really good team. They'll be back next year and the year after that, and they're going to win like 5 Super Bowls, and it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a dynasty.
Because that's what we have now. Well, guess what? They never went back.
Still happened.
Got close, but they never went back. And so you kind of learn as a sports fan of, ooh, this is hard. It's hard to win championships in professional sports. In some fans, you know what they did? They said, deuces, I'm out. And then when they got good again, it's like, all right, I'm back. What's
the
up?
worst. Do not be a fan like that.
Well, then there were fans that jumped on in 2017. And you know what? That's fine. I will never fault a fan base for growing because of success. I don't do that. There were like diehards since day one that went through, building from scratch. It was like, oh, these bandwagoners jumping on. I'm like, come on, we got room. Come on, get on here. But understand that it doesn't. Runs end. They come to an end. Well, the run came to an end. And now you have some of those fans that are like, screw everybody, fire everybody. I don't want to just make the playoffs. I want to win. Like, okay, we all want to win. But it's hard. It's hard to win championships. With that said, I get the frustration of being just good enough to get in and then do nothing with it. Mm-hmm. And that is where I think the organization and David and everybody involved, they do have to look themselves in the mirror and go, okay, we've tried this thing every way we know how, except for, maybe taking a couple steps back where we're not going to make not a full-on rebuild, mm-hmm. but a retool enough where we get younger and we're developing these young players, and the pressure of making the play, we just like, if we make it, great. If we don't, let's just get better for the next couple of years. And then gear up and go after it again. Because if they do it right, you can get one more run at it with Forsberg and Yossi and maybe even Saros.
So a competitive rebuild?
I don't like using that phrase because that has come back to bite David, I think.
So, Chase, I got here a year and a half ago into this market. And, just like learning about the Preds and learning about the Titans and everything. And looking at where both franchises are right now, I think back to 2019, right? Ryan Tannehill, comeback player of the year.
Thrill.
Right? That was the AFC Championship year. You look at the Preds, that was President's Trophy year, right? Both at very high. That was President?
No, it was the year before.
So
19 was Dallas.
Oh, okay. So it was 2018, but in the same realm of things, they were coming off the 2017 season, which was very successful for the Preds, right? Both franchises at a tip-top level, right, when it comes to the NHL and the NFL. And after that, we haven't seen anything to that level since. I mean, the Titans with the 1 seed last year, but then we all know what happened with that. So, I kind of look at both franchises right now and the cores they have, older cores in the league. Derrick Henry for the Titans side of things. You've got UC Saros and Yossi on the Preds. Some star guys who are known throughout the league, but then not the best rosters. So do you think that both organizations have just tried to draw out this window too long and, it's finally time for both of them to turn that page?
I think the windows they have tried to hold them open
mm-hmm.
with everything possible. And now it's being held open with a straw and it's going to collapse. I mean, eventually you have to know when to get up from the table.
And I think both of them are in
I agree.
Same-ish positions right now.
I agree. And it's tough to admit that, hey, it's time. But, I think that they need to, and they'll come out on the other side better for it mm-hmm. if you retool and take a few steps back. You take 2 steps back, and if you do it right, you can go 5 steps forward. That's just what it needs to be. Let's squeeze in Matt real quick. Matt, welcome in.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, thanks, guys, for taking my call. So a really weird situation happened last night with the game. It was honestly the first time I can say in 20 years that I wasn't tracking that they were playing. I saw a tweet by Jeremy K. Gover, and that's how I knew that the Preds had played last night. Like as a person who religiously follows this team 82 games a year for the last 20 years, just for some reason I had become apathetic to the point that they were actually playing. And I would say that my feelings have crossed over to just an honest feeling of hopelessness with, thinking that everything in this organization, from the ownership all the way down to the broadcast team, it just seems like something is broken with the Nashville Predators. And to a point that you were making earlier, I hope we do trade Saros, and it's not because of any anger or anything. It's that I don't want to watch another young, brilliant Finnish netminder languish on this mediocre team. I would love to see that kid go somewhere and have a chance to win a cup. He deserves that. It's not fair for us to hog another brilliant Finnish netminder when David Poile can't draft talent. I would love to see Carl Taylor called up. If that would happen, that would probably cure a little bit of the fan base's apathy toward the team, because they're losing the diehards like me. I mean, I've got 15 Nashville Predators jerseys hanging up in my closet right now, and I don't want to wear any of them right now. I mean, and again, I'm a diehard, but it's become really, really sad to not have any hope.
All right, thanks for the call, Matt.
Matt.
Appreciate it. And I think a lot of fans feel that way. And that, I think David Poile and Sean Henry, I mean, they've been around a long time. Sean's been with, now 2 successful organizations in his career in Tampa and here. They know how this works, and they know it's a roller coaster ride, and, that things are going bad. Everybody's pointing at you and like, you should get fired and all that stuff. And then, when it comes back up, everybody's like, oh, yeah, David Poile. Woo, he knows everything.
David, let's go to Broadway.
I mean, and that's how it works. And if it's just sticking with it and trusting the process. But I do believe that they're at a point where I would start looking at the future and not so much right now with this team. We'll see what Robbie Stanley has to say. We'll talk to him next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Your home for MTSU basketball is 94.9 The Fan.
3-ball, yes, sir!
All the big shots and moments live here. MTSU basketball is on a station built for you. 94.9 The Fan.
What's up, everybody? Michelle Knezovic here for Superbook Sports. And listen, make 2023 the year when you beat Vegas. Superbook Sports gives you the chance every single week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. Superbook Sports has been my official sports book all football season long. And listen, I'm transitioning it into a little college basketball. I got Kentucky plus 2 the other day. I was happy about that one. And it should be your official sports book too, because there's no fancy computer algorithms, no guys across the pond setting lines for American sports, just the best team of odds makers in the business behind the counter at Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, Superbook features some of the best odds boosts and promo bets anywhere. You got Vanderbilt heading to LSU on Wednesday. I'm going to take Vanderbilt on the money line. They're on a roll right now, looking to get 6 straight wins in the SEC. So download the Superbook Sportsbook app, or you can visit superbook.com to start your battle against Vegas right now. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
With more all-wheel drive, more electrified, and the longest-lasting vehicles, Toyota checks all the boxes, like the aggressively sophisticated Toyota Highlander, with room for up to 8 and the most advanced safety features. Now through February 28th, get 3.99 APR financing on a new 22 or 23 Highlander. With approved credit through TFS, excludes hybrids, and every new Toyota comes with 2 years no-cost maintenance. Get complete details at buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
It's Family Leisure's President's Day sale.
Wait, President's Day?
Well, it's in honor of all our presidents, and it means great deals for everyone.
Okay, like what?
Well, pools and spas for one. Family Leisure has the largest selection and guarantees the lowest prices anywhere.
What about grills and grill islands?
Of course, everything is on sale for 4 days at Family Leisure, just in time for spring.
Family Leisure, both locations, Antioch and Franklin.
Jewelry business, it's in my blood. I've been doing it all my life, and it's my passion.
Meet Daniel Sabalas, a third-generation jeweler at Genesis Diamonds.
This line of work, it's all about honesty and trust. It's about building relationships.
And that's what drew Daniel to Genesis, where it's all about education, transparency, and respect for each customer.
It's based on a family business mentality, and that's how we are. We're here to educate, to guide you, and we make it very easy. So We really go out of our way to educate customers in the right way. There's no stress level, there's no tension. The customer can feel that.
All this while providing the guaranteed best value price.
I've never seen a company that has the best price like this that I've seen anywhere. We are a powerhouse of diamonds.
Genesis Diamonds. No commission salespeople, no pricing games, no risk, no pressure, no cutting corners.
Genesis Diamonds is going to give you the best price, best quality, guaranteed, no matter what.
Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Anyone want to tell me what happened? Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Chase and Michelle podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
I got some good news. Taking you through your mid-morning. This is Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club. Love your hair. Live your life. On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Back here on Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chase McCabe, Michelle Knezvik hanging out with you. Let's talk to one half of Robbie and Rex Road morning, 6 to 9 here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley is here with us. Hello, Rob. How you doing?
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Michelle, I'm great. How are y'all doing?
You know, we're good. We're just fixing the Predators' problems one trade at a time is, I guess, is how it's going right now. But, you know, I heard yours and Joe's discussion this morning. Michelle and I have been having the discussion. I said last week, even after, you know, losing to Arizona and getting the overtime win against Philadelphia, just coming back from the All-Star break in general, the weekend starting Thursday with Boston was going to, for me, decide what I was going to do. Well, they went 1-2. They got absolutely boat raced by the best team in the league. They did put up a touchdown against Florida. Okay, that was great. They were down the entire game yesterday against Minnesota, tied up with 47 seconds left, only to have their hearts ripped out. They're not getting the points that they need right now. So I am in. It's time. It's time to start making phone calls. It's time to start making moves. I don't believe in full-on rebuilds, but I do think this team needs to start looking at the future and not so much right now. What do you think?
Well, I'm with you. I said it after the Boston game, and I stand by it now. Like it's time for the Predators to sell, and I know that they're not mathematically out of it, and they've got 3 games that, quite frankly, they should win and they better win coming up against Vancouver, San Jose, and Arizona. But if you're David Poile, if they win those 3 games, should your opinion of what this team is really be swayed by wins against Vancouver, San Jose, and Arizona? I would say no. And mathematically, they're in a spot right now where you got a 9.6% chance to make the playoffs, according to Money Puck. And there's nothing that this team has shown all year long that convinces me that they have what it takes to go on the type of run that's going to be required, number one, to get into playoffs, and number 2, to do anything of consequence when you get in there. So if it's me, the decision's already made. I am selling. I'm not convinced that David Poile has fully arrived there yet, but I also don't think it's, I don't think it's a coincidence that on our show last week he talked about, doesn't feel like this team is a buyer and that selling could be an option at some point. Pierre LeBrun reported last week that the Predators basically needed to get on a heater to avoid selling off some pieces. They're not just pulling this information out from nowhere. So, I think David Poile knows what the situation is. I think he knows where his team is, and there's nothing that they've done over the course of the past week that would change my mind on that front. So I'm with you. I think the Predators need to sell.
So I think there's a group of fans that, agree with you or agree with us on this, and then there's a group of fans that they have blamed one person since the very beginning, since he was hired. They didn't like John Hines for whatever reason. And so there's this thought of just fire John Hines, bring in a new coach, whether it's Carl Taylor or Barry Trotz or anyone else that's available, and that'll fix it. I don't buy that because I don't put all this on John Hines. I know how this works. I'm realistic. But, that you can't fire all the players and trade all the players, and so eventually, the coach might be the one that loses his job. But I'm not buying that if they made a move today that would fix anything.
No, I mean, look, this is a league where we have seen coaches get fired before, and for whatever reason, that puts a shot in the arm of the team, and they go on some run. Quite frankly, if they were going to do that, they should have done it already. Like, we're 5 games away from the deadline, so they're not going to do that. I don't think at this point it serves any purpose to do that in the season. Now, if things continue to go this way and they decide to sell off and they miss the playoffs, then I think John Hines is probably not going to be the coach next year. And I think that is fair. That's justified. I get all those things. But to your point, Chase, like I don't know how you can watch this team, particularly if you've watched them for any length of time, dating back to, let's just say the discussion y'all were just having about 2017, even if you started watching the team then. I don't know how you could watch this team and just think that it's only the coach. Like, they have parts of their roster that are just broken. I mean, they're paying Ryan Johansson $8 million a year, and he's not close to an $8 million a year player. They're playing Matt Duchene $8 million a year, and he's not an $8 million a year player. Mikhail Granlund's not a $5 million a year player right now. I mean, they have parts of their roster that is broken. And, could a new coach come in and help? Maybe, but, Duchene's 32. Johansson's going to be 31 coming up in July. Granlund's on the wrong side of 33. I can't see this really getting all that much better as they move forward here with those guys. So, look, do I think that John Hines is free of blame for this? No, I don't. I mean, I gave him a lot of credit for getting those guys to play well last year and to get the best out of some of those guys, and he's not doing it this year. Like, for whatever reason, it's just not working this year. So I think he's part of the blame that needs to be given to this team, but he's not the complete and whole picture. And quite frankly, I don't really know how you can watch this team and think that he is.
We've got Robbie Stanley on with us from Robbie in Rexroad. Robbie, you touched on some specific players, who have big contracts currently right now, just point blank not producing for the Nashville Predators. If let's put your GM hat on really quick, who ideally would you like to try to move off of before the trade deadline, if you could, if another team would take their contract?
Well, look, they're going to have to make a decision on Dante Fabro at some point. I mean, quite frankly, I think the decision's probably already been made. Like, you're not keeping Carrier and Fabro next year, to me, if you're keeping Ekholm and or McDonough. Like, the Fabro part of this, quite frankly, I thought he was terrible yesterday, and it's just been more of the same with Fabro for the last 2 years. So that's a decision that they could make at the deadline, or they could wait until the summer and make those decisions. But to me, like, if you decide you're going to sell, that tells me that you are recognizing that you need to change the direction of this team. Like, there's not a guy on the roster that I would not be listening on. And that includes Matthias Ekholm. That includes UC Saros. That includes Ryan McDonough. I mean, there's not one guy that I wouldn't at least be listening on. And you don't have to make all of your decisions at the deadline. But, like, if you can get a first-round pick for Matthias Ekholm, I'd be listening to that. If you can get if somebody is willing to take on Ryan McDonough's contract and have him come in and be a valuable piece of a Stanley Cup run down the stretch, I'd be listening on that. I'd be listening on Saros. Like, I don't think that there's much of an appetite to trade him right now if you're the Predators, but you have to at least listen to what's out there, because right now everybody wants to talk about rebuild. I'm of the opinion they probably should rebuild. I just don't think they can. Like, they have pieces of their roster that they can't move. I mean, you cannot move Johansson's contract. You cannot move Duchene's contract. I think it's going to be really difficult to move Granlund's contract. And if you can't move those guys, it's going to be very difficult to rebuild. So I would be listening on everyone if the Predators decide to go the route of selling. And then you have to make your best decisions from there. The good thing you have if you're David Poile is you don't have to make a decision by the deadline. If you don't like the offers, you can wait until the summer, because most of the guys we're talking about are not free agents. But if you're going the route to sell, you need to change up the team, and I'd be listening on everybody if I'm Poile.
So let's take a look, not say by the trade deadline, but in the offseason this summer. You mentioned some guys you might not be able to move off of. Do you think that this team, with a little bit retooling, that they could be back in, say, in a couple years, a Stanley Cup contender?
No, I don't. I mean, I think right now there's too much money tied up in guys that they have on their roster that's just going to be too hard to overcome. Now, Could you buy out a Ryan Johansson or a Matt Duchene at the end of this season? Maybe. I have no idea what the Predators ownership group, their appetite would be for something like that. But right now, I mean, this core group, a lot of which is still there from 2018, 2019, 2020, they're not good enough to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, they're not good enough. So if you retool it, it sounds great in theory, but what are you retooling? Like, you're giving up an Ekholm or a McDonough at that point, and you got to retool the defense because I don't think Fabro is going to be a part of their plans as they move forward. And you look on the forward side of things, in order to retool the forward group, in my opinion, you have to move on from a Johansson and a Duchene or a Granlund, and that's going to be really difficult to do because you've got some young guys coming up that I think could be good players. But right now, you start to look at the lineup. Like, if you're paying Ryan Johansson $8 million and you don't buy him out, he's going to have to play. Matt Duchene is going to have to play. Mikhail Granlund's going to have to play, and those guys are locked in long term. So that's why I think the Predators probably should rebuild and tear it down, but I don't think they can.
He is Robbie Stanley, one half of Robbie and Rexroad, morning 6 to 9 here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Appreciate it, Rob. Good discussion, and we'll see what happens.
Thanks, Rob. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Robbie Stanley joining us here on the show. We'll see. I mean, I think we all kind of share the same opinion, but we'll see what they do moving forward. Coming up next, we've basically been doing the power play the whole show, so we're going to shift gears a little bit, get into some college hoops because it was a big weekend around here, and somebody on this show is pretty happy with the result. We will discuss that coming up next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I think it's a really good move.
TD, it's never the offseason for ESPN's Teron Davenport.
I mean, that's something you obviously have to look at.
He's always talking about what's next for the Tennessee Titans.
Quarterback is a really important thing that they have to get determined.
Check out TD, Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 3, and Friday mornings at 8:30. Plus, the Talkin' with TD podcast.
Looking forward to that.
TD is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Preds fans, Superbook wants to send one lucky fan a pair of tickets on the ice. Text the keyword Superbook, all one word, to 615-737-1025 for entry to win.
Al Gill here from my friends at Dunkin'. Warm up and feel the love with Dunkin'. Treat yourself and a loved one to a brown butter toffee hot or iced latte, which is superb paired with the bacon avocado tomato sandwich. Be sure to try the all-new stuffed biscuit bites. It's a warm biscuit dough wrapped around a mixture of bacon, scrambled egg, and cheddar cheese. Visit us at our newly remodeled Dunkin' on Briley Parkway in Nashville or the new Dunkin' in Mount Juliet and our other locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
Hey, you think mortgage rates are still super high? Well, think again. Rates have plummeted to a 5-month low. Hey, Willie Donick here. Call my friends at Loan Pronto now to see how low rates are. It may be time to do that refinance you've been putting off, or time to get back to house hunting. If you're like a lot of people, you've got way too much credit card debt right now, and you're getting fleeced with 20+% interest charges every month, or maybe your current home rate is over 6%. So if that applies to any of you, listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto. Wipe out all those cards. Close in about 14 days and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. How does that sound to you? Right now, Loan Pronto is doing refis with APRs in the 4s. So call now to take advantage of this big rate drop. Get those credit cards to zero. Start that home improvement project or get out of that 7% loan you were forced into last year. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval. NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game and on Instagram at 1025 The Game Nashville.
Hey!
Oh, yeah. And like us on Facebook, too.
Well, you've got the whole world listening. What do you got to say?
You're listening to Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club. Love your hair. Live your life. On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
All I'm saying to them, don't listen to all the garbage. And if you hear it, turn it off. Turn your computer off. And just have good thoughts about this team. Because this team is trying, they're fighting, they're great kids. And I've said all along, we were going to break through.
That's John Calipari, Kentucky head coach. Michelle's ready to give him a lifetime contract.
I think he already has one.
To remain at Kentucky. And I think earlier in the year, her and most fans were ready to see him off to Texas. So there you go.
That is very true. That is very true.
That's how it works. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I got to give Michelle credit. She called it. I thought Tennessee would win, and they didn't. Kentucky took care of things at Rupp, and therefore Tennessee just reeling right now as Vanderbilt continues to roll. They beat Auburn at Memorial 67-65. Great game for them. They've won 5 in a row now. Bama continues to roll. Kentucky beats Tennessee 66-54. And that's where things are in the SEC with the teams that we care about around here. So I asked this question because I told you before the show that I was going to ask this. Do you believe that Rick Barnes' seat is starting to get warm? I'm not saying hot, but warm with the stretch that they've been on as of late.
I don't. I really don't think it is starting to get warm.
They do have injuries, so I'll give them that. You got some guys hurt.
Well, I mean, if you look at this team, I think the first time they lost to Kentucky earlier this season was their first loss where fans felt just really disappointed because Kentucky was showing signs of not being a tournament team, not being able to figure things out, not playing well at all at the beginning of the season. I think it's also important to remember that their starting lineup, all 5 of them, had not played together, other than Oscar Tshiebwe and Severe Wheeler at the beginning of the season. And they've had so many different guys become that starting 5. And now, at this point in the year, they're finally starting to figure it out. Whereas Tennessee, at the beginning of the season, they have a lot of their guys back, right? They've got Zakai Ziegler back. They've got Santiago Vestigby, Josiah Jordan-James, Plavsvich. A lot of those guys are back. So, we've seen it early on. I think a loss now, I mean, it was in Rupp Arena. It's hard to win at another team's place in the SEC. Tennessee still has a great resume. Looks like they're going to be a 3 seed right now heading into the tournament. They won the SEC last year, which hasn't been done for Tennessee I think that was the first time ever they won the SEC tournament last year for men's basketball. You look at the Grant Williams teams that made a little bit of a run. No, not a Final Four run, but had the talent to. Definitely had the talent to. This team, I'm not sure if they have a Final Four talent, but if they made it there, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think the reason people talk about
I think a lot of people thought they did have that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, no, 100% they did. I think we've seen some of their weaknesses, or people have maybe figured them out a little bit more as, the season has gone on, or we've just seen some of their guard play not great. And when Vescovy isn't shooting great or Ziegler isn't shooting great, then this team looks a lot different. I also mentioned when Zakai Ziegler gets in foul trouble. As your point guard, you do not have a backup point guard, which is crucial for this team. He can be such an asset to your team, and if he gets in foul trouble, and he pretty much didn't play a majority of the first half in Rupp Arena on Saturday, the team looks a lot different, Chase.
Sure.
But when you talk about hot seat...
I didn't say hot seat. I said warm.
Okay, when you talk about warming up, the expectations are really high for this Tennessee basketball program, especially after you've seen teams have success in these last couple of years. But my question is, okay, who would you rather have? This is an interesting one. Would you rather have Rick Barnes or Bruce Pearl?
Me personally, Bruce Pearl.
Why? Because he's won in March?
Because he's won in March. Exactly. That's why. And to your point, all right, you just said something. We've been talking about this with the Predators.
Mm-hmm.
So injuries aside, I get that Tennessee's had to deal with some of that. But you named, some of the talent that this team has. And, earlier in the season, there were a lot of people thinking like, hey, this is a Final Four type roster. Yet the players, the guard play hasn't been what it should be, and the play in general hasn't been what it should be. Well, whose job is it to make sure that the play is what it needs to be?
Well, see, that's a tricky question because, we saw them have great guard play when they beat Texas, who is going to be a 1 seed, heading into March Madness, beat them 82-71 a couple weeks ago. That's just 2 weeks ago. The thing is, they're getting open looks. They're just not falling. They're getting good shots. They're setting up, good offensive plays. But, for instance, they missed a bunch of wide open layups, wide open shots. But to your point, how do you win in March? You win with good guard play.
You do. And here's my point. I'm not advocating for Rick Barnes to be fired. Now, I have said that I don't trust him in March. He has underachieved in March, both at Texas and now at Tennessee. But this is what cracks me up when we're making these arguments is, yeah, the players got to play better, and they're the ones actually out on the court, and they got to execute.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I do not deny that at all. But we can use some of the same arguments with Tennessee and with Rick Barnes that you could use with the Predators right now, that you're not getting the most out of the players. And I do think that the seat is warming up. I don't anticipate a change at all coming, even if they – now, if they get knocked out in the first round of the tournament, then maybe.
That's very disappointing.
Then it might happen. But I think this is a very disappointing stretch that they need to shake this off going into tournament play because you got to get hot at the right time.
Okay, well, the interesting thing, I do not compare them to the Predators because the Predators have been just a huge disappointment as a whole, whereas UT has had some losses that they should have won. For instance, they lose on a buzzer beater to Vanderbilt. Yeah, they didn't put themselves in place to win, but they could have won that. They lose on a buzzer beater to them. They lose on a buzzer beater to Missouri. They beat the number one team in the country by far. They, break their undefeated stretch in the SEC. They've beat Gonzaga this year. Their resume they have a great resume. I don't expect this Tennessee team to go, undefeated, right, throughout the entire year. They've had some amazing wins, whereas the Predators have been, a huge disappointment as a whole. But when you talk about March, on the flip side, the format of the tournament is so hard because you have to win so many games close together and you don't have the chance to lose one and then bounce back like we've seen this Tennessee team do. But I think a lot of the hot seat conversation or warming up seat conversation with Rick Barnes will depend on March. And I also think something also to, put into play is Danny White didn't hire him.
Yeah, he didn't. I don't know if that matters, but it does in some cases, but on this one, I don't know if it does. But it could. So, it's certainly a thought. Let's squeeze Chris in real quick.
Hey, Chris.
What's up?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. First off, correction. The Vols actually won the SEC tournament back in 1979/80, where they beat Kentucky in the final. So there's that. But I would actually disagree with you, Michelle, on this one. I think that the Preds and the Vols are kind of almost in the same boat. They are, and I love what somebody said on Twitter on Saturday after the game, they are consistently inconsistent. They win games that they don't, and they lose games that they should. And I'm not saying Rick Barnes should be fired. I think I agree with Chase. I think his seat is getting a slightly warm just because of the inconsistency. And, I could honestly see the Vols winning the first game in the SEC tournament, but then losing the next game in the SEC tournament, and then losing again in March, kind of the same way. It's just that sense of inconsistency that we've seen not only this year, but years prior, at least since, Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield were in there. And it's almost the same way with the Preds. You see players being brought in that should be good, but then we don't build enough around them. And so you have that sense of inconsistency, following the Preds, following the Vols. And, earlier y'all were talking Titans. The Titans actually did something that we didn't think would happen. They fired their general manager, and they said, we're going to move in a different direction. If the Preds continue on this path, ownership has got to sit there and go, we've done the same thing year after year after year. We make the playoffs, and we fall out year after year after year in the first round. Something has to change. Poyle, I love Poyle. He's done great things for this franchise, but he's got to realize it's time to get out.
Matt, quick question for you, quick. I've got a little two-parter quickly. Do you think the Preds have the talent on their roster currently to win a Stanley Cup?
No.
Do you think the Vols have the talent on their current roster to win a national championship right now?
That is a better question because I think they do, but what we have seen with the Vols is their defense is good enough to win in March. The flip side of that coin is their offense is not good enough to win in March. And that's the thing is our defense can hold you guys. They can hold their opponents off. But can the offense make enough shots to keep us in the game? And like you said, if Ziegler goes out, who do we have behind him? And we don't have the answer to that particular question.
Thanks for the call,
next
Chris.
Year will be.
Sorry, got to run on that. Thanks for the call. Good points. I mean, good, and good question by you. So, and all, we spent most of the time on the Vols, but a fantastic win by Vandy's. They continue to roll and putting themselves in a very, very good position into the SEC tournament. We'll get back into the Preds coming up next. Could a former name be in play when it comes to the Predators? We'll discuss that next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
It's the final countdown on the Electronic Express President's Day sale. That means huge savings in every department at any of our convenient locations, including all 4K TVs, laptops and tablets, speakers, headphones, and more. Don't forget, we have up to 50% off all your appliance needs in stock and ready to deliver. Plus, get up to 5 years interest-free financing on furniture and mattress purchases. Shop in-store or online at ElectronicExpress.com. Sale ends Saturday. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Nashville's best deal of the week is Bavarian Beer House at Opry Mills. Bavarian Beer House, Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, is full of fun, food, music, and most importantly, beer. Enjoy traditional German bratwurst, schnitzel, giant pretzels, and more in an Oktoberfest-inspired space. Visit BeerHouseNashville.com for their live music schedule. Get a $50 gift card for half off right now at TheGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last.
At 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, we recognize our veterans, active military, and first responders with the playing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Now, your Game Center update.
The Nashville Predators split their back-to-back this weekend against the Florida Panthers and the Minnesota Wild. Nashville finds themselves 7 points outside the playoffs with 28 games remaining. Former Pred Ryan Hartman tipped in a puck with 20 seconds remaining in regulation on Sunday to seal the win for Minnesota.
Spurgeon keeps it in right point. Brody in left side, puts it towards goal, and it bounces in. A double deflection, and the last deflection was off Ryan Hartman's body. 4-3 Wild with 20.4 seconds left in the third.
In a few hirings over the weekend in the NFL, Eric Bieniemy was hired as the next offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, while the Arizona Cardinals hired 29-year-old Nick Rollis as their next defensive coordinator. And the Vanderbilt men's basketball team has now won 5 in a row. With 4 games remaining in the regular season, they'll head down to Baton Rouge and take on LSU on Wednesday. I'm Nick Keyser for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025thegame or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUZ HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 1025 and 1063.
A gutty performance.
Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
All the big topics.
That's what people want to know about.
Mixed with some entertainment.
So funny.
It's not funny.
Give it a minute.
This is Chase and Michelle with Chase McCabe and Michelle Knezovic.
We got a great show for you, and even if we don't, who cares?
Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club, love your hair, live your life. On 1025 and 1063, The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
Chase and Michelle, 1025, 1063, The Game, hour number 2. We'll talk to Jonathan Hutton. Got some football stuff coming up at the bottom of the hour. But getting back into the Predators, what is the likelihood that Barry Trotz, the former head coach of the Preds, Stanley Cup winning coach with Washington, could be in play with the Predators at some point? And I don't mean as necessarily as the coach. You know, I know he's expressed interest in wanting to move into a front office role at some point in his career. Does he want another shot at another Stanley Cup as a head coach? I don't know. I think taking a year off has been good for him. You know, people that I've talked to that know him, and I haven't talked to Barry personally about that specifically. But, you know, I know – I think I know him pretty well, that, you know, he's got that fire, and there's a much different, you know, feel that you get being on the bench as opposed to being up in a booth and being in the front office. So I know that Barry has that fire and that competitiveness in him from a coaching standpoint. You know, now I don't know if I'm him, if they were to make a coaching change here, if this is the job that I would necessarily want, because you're not going to come in and go win a Stanley Cup. You know, I look at teams like, you know, that could, if they don't go far in the playoffs, you know, that could make some changes. You know, Toronto is one that really pops out, that if Toronto gets knocked out in the first or maybe the second round, you know, do they make a coaching change? That's a team he can walk into and go compete for a Stanley Cup. You know, there's a few, Pittsburgh maybe in that category. Maybe not as much, but, you know, there's a few others that I would certainly look at before I would look at, you know, kind of being a part of a retooling, rebuild kind of thing here, unless he just simply wants to come back. You know, I mean, if he's like, nah, you know, Nashville's home, let's do this, let's see what I can do, and then transition into a front office role at some point, then maybe he could do that.
So I think that's kind of the interesting point right there is what does Barry want for his future? Does he want to spend a couple more years coaching, or is he going to seek more of a power role, front office role when it comes to building these rosters? And I think that's where the dynamic between him and David Poile might come in. So if he says, hey, yeah, I'll coach for 2 years, and then I want to transition into a front office role and have a significant voice when it comes to building these rosters, how would David Poile feel about that? Also, something to keep in mind, you know, the ownership group Haslam will be getting more than 50% in 3-ish years. So that'll play a role into it on, you know, what do they want to do when it comes to the front office of this team? But I think that's what it comes down to. But I also look at this too, and you mentioned this, you know, would Barry want to come into this roster? How much does winning a Stanley Cup as a coach again play into this? Because if you look at this roster, there's obviously a lot that has to be done. And I don't think that, you know, just because you were to get a Barry Trotz as a head coach doesn't mean this team will be a contender right away. I think that needs to be honed into fans. Fans are so easy to say, we want to fire John Hines, but just because you say go get a Barry Trotz doesn't mean this team is going to have, you know, a 360 and start just like winning games left and right with the same roster.
Yeah, so here's first let's hear, this was Robbie Stanley earlier this morning on Robbie and Rex Road, when they were talking about Barry Trotz and his potential return.
Coaching-wise, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. If he wanted to get into the management side of things, I think that's a different discussion. He's got obviously a lot of familiarity with this team, with this organization, with people within the organization, and I think it would be a very good place for him to be on the management side of things. My question, would he go, I don't think it would be if he was here. I don't think he'd be the GM. I think David Poile is going to be the GM next year, and you can think whatever you want to about that. I understand it, but unless something has changed with ownership, I think David Poile is going to be the GM. So, is Barry Trotz interested in being an assistant or a high-level scout? Or I don't know specifically what Barry Trotz would want to do on the management side of things. But, I don't know that the GM opportunity will be there with the Predators.
And so that was Robbie earlier this morning. And here's my add-on to that. He's not ready to be a GM. He's always been on the bench. And, I know there are guys that transition from being a coach to the front office. But if I'm him, I think the perfect situation for him would be to come back and this summer they name him to some sort of front office role. And you basically are setting up the transition. Mm-hmm. And the transition is then there's and I wonder how fans would react to that because if you're being realistic, Robbie just said it. David Poile is going to be the general manager of this team. He just is. Mm-hmm. This ownership group trusts him, and I get it. I said it last week. That guy has forgotten more about hockey than any of us will ever know. And so I think that if I'm Barry Trotz, I'm looking at it as a perfect situation because you come in, you learn from David, you have a clear path of a transition at that point. Now, what does that mean for, guys like Scott Nickel, who I think will be a general manager in this league, one day very soon. Brian Poile's different. I think Brian has the makeup, and obviously it's in his family to be a general manager. Yeah. I don't think him being the GM taking over here would be good for him. I would like, I think if he got an opportunity elsewhere, that would probably be better. Jeff Kelty's another one that is an assistant GM more on the scouting side. I think he's got an opportunity. David and I talked about that a few weeks ago of you got three guys that your assistant GMs that could definitely go be GMs somewhere.
100%. Chase, we have a texter on the text line. Somebody says, I love how you're saying Trotz isn't ready. Poile has been the GM for how many years now and still hasn't won a cup. How worse could it get? It could get a lot worse. Get a lot worse.
Yeah, everyone goes back to that, and I get it. The goal is to win a championship. But I think a lot of the people that are on that train weren't here at the beginning, and they've seen Vegas come into the league and go to the Stanley Cup final. Folks, it wasn't that way. The Predators literally had a bucket of pucks and a bag of sticks to start with and had to build from scratch.
Yeah, Vegas very much is the outlier.
The rules have changed. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not as much the outlier now. It's just the rules have changed. Back then, it wasn't – you didn't pay as much for a franchise, for one, and they just didn't set it up for you to have success early on. It was supposed to be you build from scratch. And so David and Barry Trotz built this from scratch. And then, within the first 5-6 years, they're making the playoffs, and then the lockout happens, and that kind of it didn't stunt their growth, but they were it kind of slowed it down a little bit. So I he hasn't. You're right. He hasn't won a Stanley Cup, and that haunts him. But
it haunts everybody who was. He's still at the end of the day is the winningest GM in the NHL. Right. And
people want to forget that.
I swear the championship argument haunts every great who doesn't have one. Look at Charles Barkley as a player. Haunts him. If Andy Reid stayed with the Eagles and still was a great coach. Andy Reid for a while was talked about as great coach, but doesn't have a ring, or Kyle Shanahan, right? you can be great and not win a ring, and I know that is the ultimate goal. And I'm not saying David Poile is Charles Barkley is one of the greatest to ever do it, but he still is one of the winningest GMs. And
yeah, I mean, I would love to have listened to Miami Sports Talk Radio in the late 80s and the 90s with Dan Marino. Like, are you going to cut Dan Marino because he never won a Super Bowl? No, you're not. He's the best. He's probably the best Hall of Famer not to have a ring. You know, and that's unfortunate, but sometimes that's the way it works. I get Predators fans' frustration. I'm not 100%. Like I 100% get it, but I feel like always going back to that. You know, you got to look at the bigger picture, and I don't think people always look at the bigger picture. But when it comes to Barry Trotz, you know, I would be curious if that's a direction that he'd want to go to with the franchise, and you know, wanting to kind of set it up that way to try and transition into a front office role. We'll continue this discussion. Read your text, take your call, 615-737-1025, as well as some other changes that could happen as well here on Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
White 85! Every team needs a quarterback.
White 85! Take!
That's why we have
Hasselbeck, bootleg, rollout, toss, touchdown!
Tim.
You can run good plays at the right time.
ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck gives his expertise on all things NFL.
You evaluate players, and then you're turning them over to the coaching staff.
Every Tuesday at noon.
At the right time.
With Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Tim on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
All right, make 2023 the year that you beat Vegas. Superbook Sports gives you the chance every week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. There's no fancy computer algorithms. There's no guys across the pond setting the lines for American sports. It's just the best team of odds makers in the business, and you know what? They're right there behind the counter at the Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, Superbook features some of the best odds boosts and promo bets that you'll find anywhere. So download the Superbook Sports app, or you can visit superbook.com to start your battle against Vegas right now. It's such an easy app to use. Download the app. You deposit your money after you set up your account, and then you get to betting whatever you want, whether it's hockey or basketball, professionally, collegiately, football. They already have future bets up for next year for football that you can jump in on, which is fantastic. You know, Kansas City is the favorite to win the big game once again. It's all there on the Superbook Sports app. So download that today. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Middle Tennessee, you can count on an award-winning service team for all your home maintenance and improvement needs. Lee Company, we're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau and trusted by thousands of homeowners in our community. Our team is ready to assist with all your home maintenance projects, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, appliance service, and more. Experience the convenience of calling one phone number for all your home maintenance needs. Call Lee Company today at 615-567-1000 or visit leecompany.com.
Does this sound familiar?
We have the worst agent in town, and we couldn't be more miserable. They showed up late to every showing, convinced us to lower the price way below market value, and let the cat in the house. We didn't even have a cat, but in the end, we never sold our house and lost our dream home. Hire our terrible agent and see the results for yourself. You'll totally regret it.
Don't let that happen. Google TJ Anderson Homes and see why we are referred so often by home buyers and sellers. TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Office number 615-432-2919.
Actor portrayal.
Hi, I'm Diane, and my husband Jack has low testosterone.
Hi, I'm Jack. I knew something was wrong when I went from feeling energetic and youthful to tired all the time and not sleeping well, putting on belly fat, and my sex drive just dropped.
The fun, active Heartland lifestyle we always enjoyed was disappearing. Then our sex life declined, and eventually we just stopped.
I had to do something, so Diane and I went to the sexual health specialists at Tennessee Men's Clinic. We learned that nearly half of men over 50 suffer from ED and low testosterone.
It was refreshing to hear that one size doesn't fit all. They have a variety of therapies depending on age, medical condition, and lifestyle. He's back to the man I fell in love with.
My energy's back. Our intimacy is better than it's been in years. I can't thank Tennessee Men's Clinic enough.
Your first visit to the Tennessee Men's Clinic is only $99. They have multiple treatment options for low T and ED. Book your appointment today. Call 615-208-9090 or book online at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra, results vary.
With more all-wheel drive, more electrified, and the longest-lasting vehicles, Toyota checks all the boxes. Like the adventurous new RAV4. The best-selling SUV in America is the right size vehicle for you. Now through February 28th, get 3.99 APR financing on a new 22 or 23 RAV4 with approved credit through TFS, excludes hybrids, and every new Toyota comes with 2 years no-cost maintenance. Get complete details at buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
You're gonna feel a puff of air.
Jong's Optometry has set their sights on staffing up.
Try the next line. Hey, Kim, can you tell our 2 o'clock we're running 15 behind? Sorry, we're a bit backed up today.
He needs an optometric technician to keep an eye on it all.
Where are the dilation drops?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Can't get enough Vanderbilt basketball?
Intercepted right all by himself for a one-hand flush.
Your home for the Commodores is 93.3 Classic Hits.
Put it up. It's good. Count it.
Join Coach Jerry Stackhouse and his team on their journey through the SEC.
Pulls a trigger. Yes, from 3.
Check out Vandy Hoops on 93.3 Classic Hits and the Classic Hits app. Taking you through your mid-morning.
Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This is Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club. Love your hair. Live your life.
Where'd you find those crazy characters?
On 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's always the same thing, isn't it? When everybody gets frustrated, you can't trade 20 players. You can make a change in management. You can make a change in coaching, and oftentimes teams do that. I for sure think that's always the easiest road, and I'm not prepared to take an easy road. This is a team responsibility. I mean, you cannot, for me, separate the coaches and the players for where we are right now, and everybody has to do a better job. I mean, as you're talking in this interview, I guarantee you that John Hines and his coaching staff are as frustrated as anybody. But I just don't think that is the problem with our hockey club. I think our players have played better, and again, we have nobody that is having a career year with our team. And again, that's the responsibility. The guys got to step up and play better. I fully believe that we have a team that is capable of making playoffs. I fully believe that we have individual players that have not played their best this year. So. Again, I'm a team guy, and it starts with me, and we all have to be better.
Predators general manager David Poile last week on Robbie and Rexford. He'll join them again tomorrow at 8:30 for his weekly visit. Back here on Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chase McCabe, Michelle Knezovic, the reporter, Nick Keyser, hanging out with you as we discuss the Predators and what needs to happen. And look, until whatever day comes, I guess, if that's, David retires or they move on or what have you, or they retool this thing and win the Stanley Cup, people are going to point at him and they're going to blame him, and that's just the way it is. And that's a part of it. He knows that. He's been around a long time. Mm-hmm. So he gets what comes with it. But 615-737-1025, your thoughts on the Predators. I do believe it's time to start selling off some assets, though.
I agree.
I think it's time to start looking at the future, and I mean even beyond next year, but look at the future and not so much right now. Retool this thing and then go after it, once you kind of get it fixed back up again. A lot of teams have to go through that, and I think they're at this point. I don't believe in a full-on, full-scale rebuild because I think that rarely works. But, if they can do enough to, retool some, stock the cupboard back up with the young talent, because there's some young talent that's we haven't even seen yet that I think could be good. Kimmel, is certainly one of them. Evangelista, Afanasiev, obviously Askarov, is somebody. So
And then some of the young guys who've been like Philip Tomasino, we haven't even seen a lot from him yet.
Yep.
And some of the other ones merging this year, like Tommy Novak, Parsonen, Cody Glass, right? You add all those and kind of create a new core. Chase, but I also think, when you look at this and you look at rebuild and retool, I think Robbie brought up a really good point. I think even if they wanted to go full rebuild, they can't.
Right.
Not being able to get off of some of the big contracts that they have, like Mikael Granlund, like Ryan Johansson, like Matt Duchene. I mean, those contracts are going to be hard to get off, and you don't want to have to be paying them not to play for you like we've seen them have to do in the past. That's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I don't believe buying out one of those guys is going to be good. They're already still paying Kyle Turris, so
exactly.
You don't want to see that. Let's go back to the phone, 615-737-1025. Adam wants to weigh in. Hello, Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Miss Michelle. So I called Miss Michelle's show on Saturday, and I've kind of spoke to this a little bit. The part I left out, and I was kicking myself. I'm looking at this team, and I'm not like completely, totally disappointed in them, because I feel like even if you look at the game yesterday, I felt like that was a total encapsulation of the season, because I don't think it's like lack of effort or anything. I just don't think we're very good, man. And they put forth, they come out flat, and then they put forth a pretty good effort and end up hustling and getting back and tying the game, and then they turn right around and give the game away. Like that's the season to me. So I would say, man, if you let me make decisions like that, I would say not burn it to the ground, but if you can get some assets. I've never felt like this about my team before, Chase, ever. Yeah. I've never said tear it down, because that's stupid. I want to see competitive stuff. I'm bored, man. I want to see competitive hockey into April and May. And I would never say tear it down, but tear it down so we can get, in 2 years, we can have, what Carolina has. We can have, fun hockey again, because Nashville's legit. Y'all gotta talk to that, too. Bridgestone has not been the same place, and that's a shame, because I've never seen a sporting venue like 2017. And it was special because it was in Nashville. So I want to get back to that.
Yeah, I feel that. Thanks for the call, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
I think we all share that. I mean, now that this city has tasted, both with the Titans and with the Predators, what it's like to win and to have that success. Yeah, obviously you want to get back to it. I mean, the hope is Nashville SC will do that, too. If you can find parking. But I think that would be obviously the goal for all three, of those teams to have that type of success. But it's not easy. It doesn't just happen like that. And I do think that, where I guess I disagree with David a little bit is I think he's tried to ride this out the best he can. And it's hard, especially when you've been doing it as long as he has, and at this point in his career, to admit that. But if you do it right, it doesn't take that long to get back. Now he's got some obstacles with the contracts that he has to deal with, but I think that's why you try and sell off some things now, look at it this summer, see how far off maybe you are, and start that process. That may take a couple of years, but to get back to where they were. Because, even then, when they went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2017, nobody thought that was a roster that was built to go do that.
No. And when it comes to, before the trade deadline or the offseason, if I'm David Poile, I'm pretty much taking, conversations on most people on this roster, other than a Yossi or a Forsberg, because they have the no trade, but I'm pretty much taking conversations on everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. So we will see. We'll talk some football, though, coming up next with Jonathan Hutton. He's going to join us from Outkick 360, get his thoughts on the Titans and a few things that we haven't hit on. We'll do that next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Want the latest on college football and Nashville sports?
They can be a fully formed model of what they're going to be offensively moving forward.
Join Outkick 360's Chad Withrow every Friday at 5 with Stillman and Company.
You don't know what's going to happen with the roster or the team.
He'll bring opinions and charisma for a full half hour every week.
This is a good lesson about sports and what we think and what actually happens.
Chad Withrow on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, you think mortgage rates are still super high? Well, think again. Rates have plummeted to a 5-month low. Hey, Willie Donick here. Call my friends at Loan Pronto now to see how low rates are. It may be time to do that refinance you've been putting off, or time to get back to house hunting. If you're like a lot of people, you've got way too much credit card debt right now, and you're getting fleeced with 20+% interest charges every month, or maybe your current home rate is over 6%. So if that applies to any of you, listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto. Wipe out all those cards, close in about 14 days, and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. How does that sound to you? Right now, Loan Pronto is doing refis with APRs in the 4s. So call now to take advantage of this big rate drop. Get those credit cards to zero. Start that home improvement project, or get out of that 7% loan you were forced into last year. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Hi, this is NFL Alumni Tennessee Chapter President and former All-Pro linebacker Al Smith. On the field, I always wore a helmet and pads to make sure I was protected. Life is no different. That's why I got vaccinated and boosted against COVID-19. Protection keeps you in the game. Talk to your doctor. Get the information you need to make an informed choice. Gear up, Tennessee. Protect yourself, your family, and others against COVID-19 today.
More information at nflagearup.org/Tennessee.
Houston Clinic Orthopedics has been serving Wilson County for over 12 years to ensure safety of both their patients and staff. They are strictly adhering to CDC and OSHA guidelines. They're located where you live and work, just off South Hartman Drive in Lebanon, focusing on general orthopedics, sports medicine trauma, and arthroscopic of the hip, shoulder, foot, and ankle. When experience matters, trust the #1 orthopedic clinic in Wilson County. For more info or to book an appointment, visit tn.houston.com.
Want to weigh in on the conversation? It's a brain booster. Slide into our DMs. Or just text or call at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
I got some good news.
Taking you through your mid-morning, this is Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club, love your hair, live your life. On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
I'll let you try my Wu-Tang style.
Back here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It's Chase and Michelle. Every Monday at 10:30, we talk to Jonathan Hutton of Outkick 360. He is presented by Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars. Visit Blend Bar in the heart of downtown Nashville today. Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars, luxury redefined. Hut, what's up, my man?
Hey, Hutton.
Good morning, guys. Great to talk with you.
Yeah, so we didn't get a chance to talk to you last week. How was the Super Bowl experience for you and Chad?
It was a blast. Look, it's always a whirlwind. Seeing it, some great guests, great friends. It was cool seeing Stillman there as well, giving great coverage for you guys. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I thought the guest list this year on Radio Row, just a little inside baseball for everyone listening, like the last 2 years, it's been down. Protocols, people not wanting to put up with all the stuff. And now it felt more like a Super Bowl. And then next year in Vegas is just going to be crazy. So, yeah, honestly, the conversation in Arizona was about Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. So it'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be cranked up to 11.
One of the guys that you had on was Hendon Hooker, Tennessee Vols quarterback, and now an NFL prospect. I've seen some, NFL draft gurus that have him in some places listed as the third best quarterback in this draft. I know he talked about his health and that he's going to feel good for training camp. I look at him, though, and I think the Titans could be a perfect example of a team that would be interested in him, that, you don't necessarily have to lean on him to start year one. You could use it as a redshirt year, let him grow. But I think there's a lot of intrigue with Hendon Hooker when it comes to the NFL.
Yeah, and, the sit back for a year line of thinking, at least for me, has to do with the knee as much as anything else. And I think at worst, like his floor is he's just a really good number 2 backup quarterback in the league. His age is something to consider if you're looking to invest long term, but I don't know why, after seeing the way he's played and the way he protects the football, how he makes changes and calls at the line of scrimmage. I think that's something to consider for, the Titans, who could bring back Tannehill and still invest in a quarterback beyond Malik Willis based on what we saw last season. And look, I think the other thing for Hooker is where is the ACL rehab? And we're going to get a lot of that at the Combine. The medicals mean as much as anything else, and honestly mean more than anything else for Hendon Hooker and so many players. And whenever the NFL team doctors get a chance to, we call it the cattle prod, right? Like, you figure out, every single team figures out where players are based on their personal organizational assessment of injuries. That's where we'll get a sense about where he slots, because if it's something that's not as optimistic, and I have no reason not to believe Hendon on this, but he thinks he's back by camp. But if he's not, if you still have to slow play it a bit, if he's not ready until the season, if he's not ready to do much, full contact or anything like that, that's okay. I think certain teams will be in position to do it. The Titans could be one of those teams, and the Titans could be the benefactor of having a second or third round pick where you get him. I don't think he falls that far to the third, but could he be pick 42? Sure. I mean, that's something I would highly consider.
But I'm talking to Jonathan Hutton, knowing that they've missed on some injured players, whether it be draft or free agency before, knowing that it's a new GM, and knowing that they got a ton of holes they got to fill, would it be the smart move to spend a second-round pick on a guy like Hendon Hooker, also knowing that you just spent a third on Malik Willis?
Well, if you're going to do that, knowing that you spent the third on Malik Willis, if you're going to do that, now's the time to do it, with John Robinson gone and Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel collaborated on how they're going to retool this roster, rebuild this roster. Look, I think you have to figure out the here and now for 2023, but also look forward beyond that. Vrabel, I can tell you, is not doing anything but looking at 2023. Carthon is looking and trying to figure out the cap to build towards the future as well. And that's the delicate balance of trying to stay competitive, which I think is a bit more of an optimist view based on the division that they're in, Chase. But consider where the Kansas City Chiefs were in 2016. They were regular season successful. Alex Smith was the quarterback. They were coming off like a 12-win regular season, and they drafted Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes comes in, Andy Reid, they invest in him. It's like the 12th pick. They let him sit behind Alex Smith, and then we've seen what has happened the next 5 years after his rookie season, where he didn't do much. Like, it was apparent they had invested in their future, but they were still trying to keep their core together. The difference between that example and where the Titans are, the Kansas City Chiefs had a good offensive line then, and they had a salary cap that was much more manageable than what the Titans are going to the offseason with, where they're currently $21 million over the cap, based on all the projections and what we know of where they are before they make a move salary-wise. So I tend to lean towards, I understand there's so many holes you have to choose from. You have to figure this out, but we're going to know a lot based on the Tannehill decision. If they restructure, if they bring him back instead of saving the $18 million, then they can invest in the rookie and have the best of both worlds, where Tannehill is not the long-term future, but it doesn't mean you can't go get that guy in the draft and still pick and choose where you're going to upgrade rookie-wise. That's where Carthon, that's what he's hired to do. Rand Carthon and his staff are going to make their money and their success or failure based on where they invest in the later rounds of the draft, how they figure out who fits them and which pieces need to be the young core versus how they go about and supplement players through free agency. And that's what San Francisco's done so well, and that's what he's been tasked to do here.
We've got Jonathan Hutton on with us from Outkick 360. Jonathan, sticking with the Hendon Hooker conversation, obviously his injury, let's just say, full recovery from the ACL. People say, the offense he ran in college, it traditionally does not transfer well into the NFL. Looking at Hendon Hooker as a prospect, he's an older guy, he's got a great football IQ. What type of quarterback, and I know we never truly know, but what type of quarterback do you think that he could be in the NFL someday?
I think right now, baseline, you have to figure that he's going to be a great guy in the locker room, great leader, solid contributor to your overall roster, right? And that's where the league is trending. His style. The Titans are already telling us that they were considering leaning that way by drafting Malik Willis last year. That was a different version of what we've seen them do through Tannehill. Like, that was investing more in the mobile quarterback, the run game, the offensive line. They were still headed that direction with all the question marks about Malik Willis in the pass game. Hendon Hooker is light years better. We've seen it for ourselves with what we've seen him do throwing the football. And, Chad asked the question to him on Radio Row about the biggest misconception about what people assume he is versus what he believes he is. And he was smiling during the question because he really popped back and just said, it's the fact that I'm not surveying the defense, reading the defense, and going through progression, that it's just one call, one look, one read, and it's so fast that it benefits the quarterback, and it's not that difficult to figure out which direction you're going with the football. And he said it's far more intricate than that, and he looks forward to proving it on the dry erase board whenever he jumps into the combine meetings. And honestly, he's already done that. Mm-hmm. He did that at the Senior Bowl, where he was able to meet with all 32 teams, and I'm sure they had those types of discussions with him.
Taking a look at the NFL as a whole, Eric Bieniemy has just been named the assistant head coach with the Commanders and offensive coordinator. Why do you think it's taken him so long to get, another offensive coordinator job? Or I look at a guy like Steichen, who is the new Colts head coach, who has less experience with him, but, still got that head coaching position, Hutton.
I think with Steichen, it's familiarity. From the Colts' perspective, it's the familiarity of the Frank Reich tree. Yeah, it's they were together in San Diego with the Chargers. Steichen, whenever Reich was the offensive coordinator, then Steichen follows Sirianni, who was with Reich as his OC, to Philly. They see what Sirianni's done after leaving Indianapolis and going to Philly, and then they had Steichen, who's just a younger version of Sirianni. He's more fiery than Frank Reich, and I think that's ultimately what leads them to say, hey, they work together in building up Jalen Hurts. We're about to draft potentially Bryce Young or whoever. Let's pair this together and let's go get it. Now, easier said than done, because now we're going to see Steichen call plays as a first-time head coach, and that's not easy. He could really slow down and pump the brakes on the organization even more if he's slow out of the gate at doing that and not figuring out. If he doesn't know what he doesn't know, that's a bad side for Indianapolis. Eric Bieniemy has, he's interviewed 15 or 16 different times for a head coach. And there have been opportunities, even last year at this time. I think if we went back, February the 20th, I think if we went back to early February, mid-February last year, we still didn't know if Bieniemy was going to return to Kansas City, even if he didn't get a head coaching position. And they were slow out of the gate there. I wonder, if he's been looking around for the opportunity that he received in Washington to get out from underneath Andy Reid. And immediately after the Super Bowl, Reid even mentioned, hey, I hope Bieniemy gets a chance to run the show. at no point did I see or read comments from Kansas City trying to keep him. And the other peculiar thing, at least to me, is there's a lot of chatter about Eric Bieniemy year after year with all these reasons why he's not getting hired, and I never hear from Eric Bieniemy. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to hear his side of it before jumping to conclusions like everyone else is doing from a national perspective as to why or why not he's not getting jobs.
Hey, Hutton, make sure to give a Go Wildcats to Chad for me this afternoon, okay?
I'll do it the minute I see him. I'm going to let him know, Michelle.
Let him know it came from yours truly.
I'm sure that'll go over well.
I will.
All right, Hut, appreciate the time as always. I know we'll be hearing from you on Wednesday with Caroline, Willie, and D. Mason. We'll talk to you next week and be listening today starting at 2 o'clock.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, sounds good, guys. Always enjoy the conversation. Have a good day.
You too. Jonathan Hutton, Outkick 360, weekdays from 2 to 5 on 94.9 The Fan, alongside Chad Withrow. Appreciate him for joining us. Coming up next, there were a few other things that took place over the weekend, kind of a best of the rest. We will do that coming up next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
When you want all the...
Going in and the score. Blast the score. He risks one, they score.
And don't forget the...
Oh, what a stop. Running across to make the save. The backhander, nice stop.
When all you want is... Smashville. We have you covered. Hear every Predators game. Right here. We are your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
All right, boys and girls, make 2023 the year that you beat Vegas. Superbook Sports gives you the chance every week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. There's no fancy computer algorithms. There's no guys across the pond setting the lines for American sports. It's just the best team of odds makers. They're in the biz right there at the counter at the Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, they feature some of the best odds boosts and promo bets that you will find anywhere. So download the Superbook Sports app, or you can visit superbook.com to start that battle against Vegas right now. Download the app, deposit your money, and start to betting, whether it's basketball or hockey, baseball is coming up, soccer going on. There's all those things that you can bet on. You can even start putting some money on futures when it comes to pro football and who might win the championship next year. It's all there on the Superbook Sports app. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
It's Family Leisure's President's Day sale.
Wait, President's Day?
Well, it's in honor of all our presidents, and it means great deals for everyone.
Okay, like what?
Well, pools and spas for one. Family Leisure has the largest selection and guarantees the lowest prices anywhere.
What about grills and grill islands?
Of course, everything is on sale for 4 days at Family Leisure, just in time for spring.
Family Leisure, both locations, Antioch and Franklin.
At the law office of Amanda J. Gentry, we are committed to defending your rights. We have a team committed to helping you navigate the court system, whether you've been accused of a crime or you're going through a messy divorce and custody. Call our team to help you navigate this system. We are here to protect your rights, to demand your rights, to enforce your rights. 615-604-6263. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
Hey, it's Chase McCabe, and in the past, hair loss was inevitable, but now you have a choice for thicker, fuller hair. Trust the experts with 45 years of experience at Hair Club. They've helped more than 500,000 clients love their hair again. No matter your age, stage of hair loss, or budget, Hair Club can customize a solution for you. And for a limited time, you can get 10% off when you book a free consultation today at hairclub.com/chase. That's hairclub.com/chase.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas.
Well, you've got the whole world listening. What do you got to say?
You're listening to Chase and Michelle, presented by Hair Club. Hair Club, love your hair, live your life. On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, Preds fans, the Preds have a game tomorrow night against Vancouver, and it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty and Superbook Sports. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you'll win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate in Pick to Click tomorrow morning at 8:45 with Robbie and Rexroad. Back here on Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. Wrapping things up on this Monday. It was a busy weekend in sports. I mean, we're at that time of year where obviously the NFL's done. The XFL made its re-debut on ESPN and ABC. And I will admit, I maybe watched 3 plays. I just was – I mean, will I check it out? Yes. But same with the USFL, like that's coming back for another year. But I'm just, I'm not going to get fired up about it like I would the NFL.
Listen, I love it for the players. I love the ability for them to, still keep playing if they can't make the NFL. No.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, college basketball
Josh
right
Gordon
now,
balling out.
College basketball right now is getting really exciting, and I know everybody's like, college basketball stinks in the regular season. I've heard that a lot, and I get it because it's primarily the NFL. But right now, I mean, I think I saw like 5 games with buzzer beaters in the last week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So fun and exciting, and yeah, XFL or USFL, I can't do it, Chase.
Yeah, so the Renegades beat the Vipers in the first game.
Like, that means nothing to me.
The Roughnecks beat the Guardians. I mean, great. That's awesome. I hope it works because it's a good development platform.
Exactly.
Having both the XFL and the USFL. I think it's interesting now that you have, and you kind of had this with the the AAF, but I think it's cool to have 2. Eventually, one's going to make it and one isn't. I could see a merger. And then the NFL can invest into it and make it their development league. That's what I hope happens.
And if that was how it was, I don't watch the G League. You know what I mean? But if it was more of, okay, whether it's the XFL or USFL or they combined and you're associated with a specific NFL team, that might be probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So you had that going on. Obviously, yesterday I was invested in the 65th running of the Daytona 500, won by Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who is he grew up in Olive Branch, which is just outside of Memphis. He was born in Memphis, so
awesome.
We'll claim him.
For
he's
sure.
Good
Tennessee
boy.
guy?
His 3rd Cup Series win, but his first one in a long time. 2017 was the last time he had won in the Cup Series, and obviously winning the granddaddy of them all, the Daytona 500. It was the longest Daytona 500 in history because of the 2 overtimes, so I think in reality it was like the Daytona 530.
Love it.
Because of the resets at the end. And I knew it was going to go that way because it was a pretty tame race for the most part, which meant, they're going to get aggressive and impatient at the end, and that's exactly what happened. Joey Logano misses it by that much because Stenhouse happened to be leading at the moment of caution when NASCAR fired the caution, and so he wins. Logano finishes 2nd. And that's how the NASCAR season, the 75th NASCAR season, gets underway. Pretty cool.
Love it. I love that you love it.
Yeah, it's my thing. It's my favorite.
I definitely will have to brush up on some of my NASCAR knowledge, especially since we host a show together. But
I will help you.
You help me with NASCAR. I help with college basketball. We didn't get a chance to talk about them because we talked a lot of the Vols today. Vanderbilt on a hot streak. A huge win in Memorial on Saturday night against Auburn. They're now tied for 5th. So it's Bama, A&M, and then tied Tennessee and Kentucky, both at 9 and 5, and then Auburn and Vanderbilt tied. But obviously, Kentucky has that tiebreaker over Tennessee, and then Vanderbilt now has that tiebreaker over Auburn. This team's hot, Chase. They are going to LSU, who's not a good team, Wednesday, but it's at LSU. And they're on a 5-game win streak in the SEC right now.
Yeah, and you can hear their games on 93.3 Classic Hits. So we'll have pregame coverage for you at 5:30 on Wednesday as Vandy takes on LSU, which will be a good one. The NBA All-Star Game was last night, and they had their All-Star Weekend and the dunk contest and all that.
Mm-hmm.
We know how I feel about All-Star Games. I went to dinner at a bar or at a restaurant, and I sat at the bar, and they had the All-Star Game on, so I was forced to watch some of it. My God.
I think it was 99-92 at halftime.
It was all – they don't play defense at all. I mean, and the shooting's terrible.
No, I mean, you just throw up anything. The way I look at that, and I kind of look at it the same as the Pro Bowl, is I didn't watch the game last night. I watched the dunk contest, the three-point contest. I like some of those skills competitions, and I think that, you know, in the Pro Bowl and the NBA All-Star Game, to go to it and cover the event and be there for all, you know, the networking events, the parties, to be there in person looks incredible, looks awesome. I just don't think it translates to TV for me.
So apparently I've hit a nerve because Junie just texted me and said, dude, you got to watch it. The XFL was awesome this weekend, and now we got a couple calls. So let's see what people think. Terrence, you'll lead us off. What's up, Terrence?
Hey, Terrence.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about the XFL. Like, not in a joking way, but listen, the two games yesterday were great. I mean, these games actually came down to like the last, the last second. I think the game last night came down on the 1 yard line. They were really, really, really good games, and I think, for the first week of the XFL, I mean, those games are really good. The crowd seemed like they was into it, comparing it to, in 2020, the stadiums looked fuller. It didn't really, you didn't really see a whole lot of empty seats and stuff. It really looked like the crowd was into it, and I really think it's gonna. I mean, I think it's gonna do something this time around. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
All right, thanks for the call, Terrence. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call. Maybe I will check it out then.
I tell you what, there's a game Thursday night, the Battlehawks and the Sea Dragons. Here's another thing, too, that started happening, and I don't know how this has happened. I am getting all these PR emails about the XFL, like to my work email. Like, they found me somehow. So
they just heard you, and they just blasted you with emails.
I am getting, all this stuff. I'm like, thanks, I think. So I will watch it Thursday night, getting ready for the Preds game.
Listen, I'll give it a chance, but I was in full movie mode on the couch yesterday in college basketball.
I will not bet on it.
Nope, I will not bet on it either.
Yet. Nate wants to weigh in. Nate, what's up?
Hey, Nate.
Morning, guys. I saw last week that the USFL has a draft tomorrow night, and I was like, they have a college draft for the USFL. I don't know if y'all knew about this or if y'all had any, opinions on it or what, but it just kind of struck me.
Okay. To be honest with you, Nate, and thanks for the call, I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up right now to help with an answer on that.
Would it be we should have asked Hutton because, he's with Fox and has done some stuff.
Here we go.
I guess they are. They're holding a college draft.
Details on 2023 USFL college draft. Yeah, February 21st, 1 p.m. It'll be an afternoon draft.
Interesting. Okay.
Learn something new every day, Chase. And if you would like to know, the Michigan Panthers have the first overall pick, followed by the Pittsburgh Maulers.
Is the Michigan Panthers still Jeff Fisher?
Jeff Fisher?
Yeah.
Number 1 overall pick, baby.
Oh, the mustache getting it done.
He better pick well.
I think he's still involved with it.
I think he is too. Well, that's at 1 p.m. tomorrow, USFL. Maybe I will check it out. I wrote it off at first, but it's really hard for me when it's competing with college basketball, and I usually will lean towards college basketball, Chase.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. No, Fisher's not involved.
Okay.
It's Mike Nolan now.
And then that'll be tomorrow. And then quickly, I have to get a college basketball note in. Tennessee goes to Texas tomorrow, play Texas A&M. They're second in the SEC right now. So Super Tuesday matchup for them. That's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I think so too. College basketball heating up. It's a lot of fun. That's going to do it for us. Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace coming up next. They will take your thoughts and concerns on the Predators and what is next for them. That is all coming up here on 102.5, 106.3, The Game.